I've decided to start a new life without you." The words hung in the air of the upscale restaurant where we'd gathered to celebrate my daughter's college graduation. Gregory, my husband of 28 years, stood with his champagne glass still raised, his announcement displacing the toast he was supposed to be making to Amelia's achievements. The clinking of silverware ceased. Conversations halted mid-sentence. 50 pairs of eyes darted between Gregory and me, waiting for my reaction. For the tears, the shouting, the dramatic exit everyone expected. Instead, I smiled. "Congratulations on your honesty," I said calmly. "My name is Bianca Caldwell. I am 54 years old, and until this moment, I had been playing the role of the devoted wife and mother perfectly. I put my own career aspirations on hold to support Gregory through 3 business ventures, 2 career changes, and countless finding himself phases. I raised our brilliant daughter, Amelia, who sat beside me now, her graduation cap still perched on her head, her expression frozen in horror. From the corner of my eye, I could see Cassandra Wells, Gregory's much younger girlfriend, shifting uncomfortably at the back table where she sat with people I had considered friends for decades. The same friends who apparently knew about the affair but never thought to tell me. The same Cassandra who had attended our Christmas parties, who had once called me for advice about her career. With practiced calm, I reached into my handbag and pulled out a sealed cream-colored envelope. I placed it gently beside Gregory's plate. "What's this?" he asked, his triumphant expression faltering. "Something for you to read later," I replied, keeping my voice steady. I turned to Amelia, whose face had gone pale. I kissed her cheek. "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. This day is still about your accomplishment." Then I stood, smoothed my dress, and addressed our stunned guests. "Please enjoy your meal. I wish you all a lovely afternoon." With that, I walked out of the restaurant, my head held high, feeling 50 pairs of eyes following me. The heavy door swung shut behind me, cutting off the beginning of anxious murmurs. Outside, the Augusta summer heat hit me like a wall, but I welcomed it. For the first time in years, I could breathe freely. Behind me, I heard the restaurant door open and slam shut, followed by Gregory's voice, no longer confident, but high, pitched and frantic. "Bianca, what the hell is this? What have you done?" I kept walking, allowing myself a small smile. The envelope I'd handed him contained the beginning of my revenge, one I'd been meticulously planning for months. I had always been the practical one in our marriage. While Gregory dreamed big and took risks, I maintained the stability our family needed. I was the one who saved for Amelia's education when Gregory invested unwisely in his friend's restaurant venture. I was the one who worked extra hours as a finance manager at Truvanta Corporation when his midlife crisis led him to quit his stable position to follow his passion. Selling handcrafted furniture, a passion that lasted approximately 6 months before he grew bored. My own dreams of opening a financial consultancy for women were perpetually on hold. After Amelia graduates, I told myself. After Gregory finds stability. 3 months ago, I noticed discrepancies in our joint accounts, small transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Having spent 20 years managing our family finances, these irregularities stood out like red flags. I could have confronted Gregory immediately, but something held me back. Perhaps it was intuition, or perhaps it was the growing distance between us over the past year. Instead, I began quietly investigating. What I discovered was worse than I imagined. Gregory had been systematically moving funds to a separate account for over a year. He had also been taking Cassandra to expensive restaurants, purchasing jewelry and looking at beach-front property, all while telling me we needed to tighten our belts for retirement. Then came the text messages I discovered when Gregory left his phone unlocked. Messages about their new life together, messages about how he was finally breaking free, messages about their plans for the day after Amelia's graduation, the day he had chosen to make his grand exit from our marriage. What Gregory had forgotten, or perhaps never fully grasped, was that I had been a financial professional for 30 years. I understood money trails, I knew how to trace assets, and most importantly, I remembered the prenuptial agreement we had signed 28 years ago when I had more family money than he did. The agreement he had insisted upon, ironically, to protect his future earnings, contained a fidelity clause that would prove to be his undoing. While Gregory plotted his escape with Cassandra, I was building my case. I consulted with attorneys. I documented every hidden transfer. I gathered evidence of their affair. I prepared divorce papers. I timed everything perfectly, knowing Gregory would want to wait until after Amelia's graduation to avoid ruining her big day. What he didn't expect was that I would serve the divorce papers the morning of the graduation, before his planned announcement. But with the papers still safely hidden in court records not yet accessible to him, what Gregory didn't know was that I was always 3 steps ahead. I didn't return to the restaurant. Instead, I drove to our home, a spacious colonial in Augusta's historic district that we had purchased 15 years ago, the house that Gregory had already promised to Cassandra, according to text messages that he didn't realize I had seen. I parked in the driveway and calmly entered what had been our shared space for over a decade. Everything looked the same: the family photos on the walls, the antique grandfather clock that had been my father's, the worn leather couch where Gregory and I had once dreamed of our future together. Yet everything had changed. I went upstairs to the master bedroom and opened the closet. Gregory's clothing was already packed in suitcases, hidden in the bag, ready for his planned departure tomorrow. I smiled at his predictability. He had always been meticulous about clothing, but careless about the important things. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from friends at the restaurant, from Amelia, even from Gregory's sister Diana, who had flown in for the graduation. I responded only to my daughter, "I'm okay. This isn't your burden to carry. Enjoy your graduation day. We'll talk tonight. I love you." I had protected Amelia from the truth for months, not wanting to overshadow her final semester with family drama. She would be angry that I hadn't told her, but I knew she would understand eventually. Amelia had inherited my practicality along with her father's charisma, a powerful combination that had helped her graduate with honors. 3 hours later, I heard Gregory's car in the driveway. The front door slammed open. "Bianca," he shouted, his voice echoing through the house. "Where are you?" I was sitting in the living room, calmly reviewing documents on my laptop. I closed it as he stormed in, his face flushed with anger, the envelope clutched in his hand. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, waving the papers. "You served me with divorce papers today of all days. I thought it aligned nicely with your plans." I replied calmly. "You wanted to start your new life. I'm simply helping facilitate the transition. You had no right to." "I had every right." I interrupted, my voice steady. "Just as you had every right to choose Cassandra. We all make choices, Gregory. The prenup expired years ago." He said, his voice suddenly smug. "Any lawyer will tell you that." I allowed myself a small smile. "Actually, it didn't. Section 12 specifically states that the fidelity clause remains in effect for the duration of the marriage. Your lawyer should have explained that to you." "Oh, wait, you didn't consult one, did you?" The color drained from his face as reality sank in. The prenup he had insisted upon to protect his potential wealth would now cost him everything: the house, the vacation property in Savannah, his portion of our retirement accounts. His grand gesture at the restaurant had just become the most expensive announcement of his life. "You can't do this to me," Gregory said, collapsing onto the couch. "We built this life together and you chose to end it." I replied, though not in the way you planned. Gregory's phone buzzed persistently in his pocket. He glanced at it, then ignored it. Cassandra, no doubt, wondering where he was and why he wasn't following their carefully orchestrated plan. "You've always been calculating, Bianca, but this is cold," he said, trying a different approach. "What about our history? 28 years together means nothing. I studied him, this man I had loved for nearly 3 decades, the man who had held my hand through 2 miscarriages before we had Amelia, the man who had once surprised me with a weekend trip to Charleston for our 10th anniversary. When had he changed, or had he always been this person, and I had been too devoted to notice? Our history meant everything to me." I answered truthfully. "That's why your betrayal hurt so deeply." His expression softened momentarily, perhaps seeing an opening. "Then maybe we can fix this. I made a mistake. People make mistakes." "This wasn't a mistake, Gregory. This was a calculated plan spanning more than a year. You systematically moved our money. You looked at property with her. You planned to announce our separation publicly to humiliate me." His face hardened again. You're exaggerating, am I? I picked up my phone, opened the recording app, and played his own voice. After the graduation, I'll tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't make a scene in front of everyone. Then Cassandra's voice, and she has no idea about the money. Gregory again. None. Bianca trusts me completely. That's her weakness. The blood drained from his face. You recorded our conversations. That's illegal. Not in Georgia when one party consents. I responded, and not when it's in your own home. I didn't record your private moments with Cassandra. I'm not cruel, just the conversations about your plans to defraud me. Gregory stood suddenly, agitated. I need to make some calls, of course, I said. Your attorney might be a good start. I'll be staying at Diana's tonight. Diana's? He sputtered. My sister's house. I nodded. She's quite upset with you, actually. She was the one who first spotted you and Cassandra together last Christmas. She didn't tell me immediately. She confronted you first. You promised her it was nothing, that you would end it. When she realized you hadn't, she came to me. This was another blow he hadn't anticipated. Diana and I had always been close, but Gregory never imagined his own sister would choose my side. Everyone's betraying me, he muttered. Ironic, isn't it? I gathered my purse and a small overnight bag I had packed earlier. You have until tomorrow evening to remove your things from the house. After that, the locks will be changed. As I headed toward the door, Gregory called after me, desperation in his voice. What about Amelia? Have you thought about how this affects her? I paused, anger finally breaking through my calm facade. Don't you dare use our daughter as a shield, Gregory. You certainly weren't thinking about her when you were planning your new beach front life with Cassandra. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked at it and groaned. Problem? I asked. Cassandra is at the apartment already. She's moved her things in. I couldn't help but smile. The apartment you put in both your names, the lease you signed last month. Gregory nodded, looking confused. You might want to check with the leasing office. That application was flagged for credit issues and never completed. The agent called our home phone to verify information. I handled it myself. I walked out the door, leaving Gregory to face the first of many consequences. His perfectly planned new life was unraveling faster than he could process. Diana lived in a charming bungalow across town, close to the university where she taught literature. When I arrived, she greeted me with a fierce hug. I just heard from Amelia, she said, pulling me inside. Are you okay? I'm better than I expected. I admitted, following her to the kitchen where a bottle of wine was already open. I never thought Gregory would make such a spectacle. Diana said, pouring 2 glasses. The restaurant, in front of everyone. He's lost his mind. It was meant to humiliate me. I explained, accepting the glass. A public rejection, so I couldn't fight back without looking hysterical. Diana's face darkened. My brother always did have a flair for drama, but this is beyond anything I expected from him. We settled in her sunroom, surrounded by potted plants and bookshelves. Diana had never married, preferring her independence and academic pursuits. Over the years, I had sometimes envied her freedom. What did you put in that envelope that made him so upset? She asked. I explained the contents, the divorce filing, the evidence of his financial deception, and most importantly, the prenuptial agreement that would leave him with far less than he had planned. The prenup. Diana was amused. I remember when he insisted on it. Father had just given you that money for his first business, and he was so worried about protecting it. She laughed bitterly. The irony is delicious. My phone rang. Amelia, I took a deep breath before answering. Mom, she said immediately, her voice strained. I'm coming over to Aunt Diana's. Honey, you don't have to. I'm already on my way. She interrupted. Dad is telling everyone you've lost your mind, that you've been planning this for months. He's saying horrible things. Of course he was. Gregory always rewrote narratives to cast himself as the victim. Let him talk, I said. The truth will become clear soon enough. 20 minutes later, Amelia arrived, still in her graduation dress, but with her makeup smudged from crying. She fell into my arms like she used to as a child after a nightmare. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice muffled against my shoulder. I didn't want to ruin your final semester. I explained. You worked so hard for this day. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Well, Dad took care of ruining it anyway. We moved to Diana's living room where Amelia finally got the full story. How I had discovered the affair, the financial deceptions, and the plans Gregory and Cassandra had made. I knew something was off with Dad. Amelia admitted. He's been different, distracted, always on his phone, but I never imagined. None of us want to see these things in people we love, Diana said gently. My phone buzzed with a text message from Philip Anderson, my attorney. The emergency filing had been approved. The accounts I had identified were frozen, pending the divorce proceedings. Gregory now had limited access to funds, enough for living expenses, but not enough to follow through on the property purchases he had planned with Cassandra. I showed the message to Diana and Amelia. Good, Amelia said firmly. He deserves it. My daughter's loyalty warmed me, but I wasn't naive. He's still your father. I reminded her, your relationship with him is separate from what's happening between us. Amelia shook her head. Maybe someday, but right now I can't even look at him. He hugged me this morning and told me how proud he was, all while planning to blow up our family hours later. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Diana went to answer it, returning moments later with a troubled expression. It's Gregory, she said, and he's not alone. I steeled myself as Diana led Gregory and Cassandra into the living room. Cassandra looked uncomfortable, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, her eyes darting around the room. She was 37, not exactly a trophy wife, but still 17 years my junior, with shoulder, length blonde hair, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having faced real hardship. Gregory, by contrast, looked furious. His earlier desperation had hardened into anger. Bianca, you need to stop this insanity. He demanded, unfreeze the accounts. We can discuss this like reasonable adults. Amelia stood up, placing herself slightly in front of me. Maybe you should have tried being reasonable before announcing to everyone that you were leaving Mom. Gregory's eyes widened as if just noticing our daughter. Amelia, this doesn't involve you. Doesn't involve me, she echoed incredulously. You blew up our family on my graduation day, and it doesn't involve me. Cassandra touched Gregory's arm. Greg, maybe we should go. He shook her off. No, I'm not leaving until Bianca agrees to be rational about this. Diana folded her arms. My sister-in-law seems to be the only rational person in this scenario. You're the one who created this mess, Gregory. I remained seated, watching the drama unfold. For years, I had been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over conflicts and kept everyone happy. That role was exhausting, and I had finally set it down. The accounts will remain frozen until the preliminary hearing. I said calmly, that's in 3 days. The judge will determine appropriate asset division at that time. 3 days, Gregory sputtered. What am I supposed to do for 3 days? You have your personal account. I reminded him, the one you've been funneling money into for the past year. That should be sufficient. Cassandra's head whipped toward Gregory. You have a separate account, with how much in it? An interesting dynamic was emerging. Clearly, Gregory hadn't been entirely forthcoming with Cassandra either. Gregory ignored her question. This is vindictive, Bianca. This isn't like you. Perhaps you never really knew me. I replied just as I apparently never really knew you. Amelia turned to Cassandra. Did you know he was going to announce it like that at my graduation celebration? Cassandra had the decency to look ashamed. I thought he was going to talk to your mother privately. The announcement today was unexpected. Gregory shot her a betrayed look. Cracks were already forming in their united front. I think you both should leave, Diana said firmly. You've upset Amelia enough for one day. Amelia, Gregory pleaded, you understand that relationships change, don't you? Sometimes people grow apart. My daughter's face hardened in a way I had never seen before. What I understand is that you're a coward who couldn't even give Mom the dignity of a private conversation. What I understand is that you were stealing from our family while I was working 2 jobs to help pay for my textbooks because you said money was tight. Gregory paled. That's not how it was. It's exactly how it was. Amelia cut him off. Please leave, Dad. I can't look at you right now. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Gregory turned to go, Cassandra trailing behind him. At the door, he paused and looked back at me. This isn't over, Bianca. I'll fight you on this. I met his gaze steadily. "You're welcome to try." After they left, Amelia collapsed next to me on the sofa, tears streaming down her face. I've never talked to Dad like that. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. Sometimes standing up for what's right is painful. Diana brought us fresh glasses of wine. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. Indeed, I thought. This ending was just the beginning of something new. The preliminary hearing took place in a small courtroom on a rainy Tuesday morning. I arrived with my attorney, Philip, while Gregory came with a lawyer he had hastily retained, a young associate from a firm that specialized in corporate law, not family matters. Gregory's poor choice of representation was yet another consequence of his rushed planning. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and no patience for dramatics, reviewed the prenuptial agreement carefully. "This document appears to be in order," she said, looking over her reading glasses at Gregory's attorney. "Do you contest its validity?" The young lawyer cleared his throat. "Your Honor, we believe the agreement has expired due to the length of time that has passed. Section 18 clearly states that the duration is for the term of the marriage plus any legal proceedings resulting from its dissolution." The judge read aloud, "There is no expiration date indicated." Gregory leaned forward to whisper urgently to his lawyer, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Furthermore, the judge continued, "The evidence of systematic fund transfers appears to violate the financial disclosure requirements in Section 23. She shuffled through the papers, then looked up. "I am ruling to maintain the freeze on joint accounts pending full financial discovery. Mr. Caldwell's personal account will remain accessible to him. The family home will remain in Mrs. Caldwell's possession during proceedings, as stipulated in the prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause." Gregory's face flushed dark red. "This is outrageous," he muttered loud enough for me to hear. The judge fixed him with a stern look. "Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you review the agreement you signed more carefully. This court will reconvene in 30 days for the full hearing, after discovery is complete." As we left the courtroom, Gregory caught up to me in the hallway. "Bianca, please, we need to talk about this reasonably. 28 years together has to count for something." "It counted for everything," I replied, "until you decided it didn't." I walked away, leaving him standing alone in the courthouse corridor, the weight of his choices finally beginning to sink in. Word spread quickly through our social circle. Friends called daily, some offering support, others seeking gossip. I maintained a dignified silence about the details, simply saying, "Gregory and I are separating. These things happen." Meanwhile, Gregory's carefully constructed facade was crumbling, the image he had cultivated. Successful businessman, devoted family man, was tarnished beyond repair. The financial freeze meant he couldn't follow through on promises made to Cassandra. The beachfront property they had been planning to purchase fell through. The luxury car he had put a deposit on had to be canceled. 2 weeks after the hearing, Diana called me, her voice tinged with amusement. "Have you heard the latest? Cassandra moved out. Already." I wasn't entirely surprised, but the speed was impressive. Apparently, she discovered that Gregory's business isn't doing as well as he claimed. The substantial savings he talked about don't exist. She told her friend Jennifer that she didn't sign up to date a man with financial problems. I couldn't help but laugh. He always was good at creating illusions. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. The financial security I had always maintained, separate from our joint accounts, gave me freedom Gregory hadn't anticipated. I rented a small office space downtown and began setting up the consultancy I had dreamed about for years. My first clients were 2 women going through divorces of their own. Word of mouth brought more. I specialized in helping women understand their finances during major life transitions. Divorces, widowhood, career changes. The work was immediately fulfilling in a way my corporate job never had been. Amelia, who had accepted a job with a marketing firm in Charleston, called me regularly. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she told me after I described my growing client list. "You're helping people during their worst moments." "I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me earlier," I replied. Preparing women for whatever might come, being needed for my expertise rather than my caregiving, was a novel and empowering experience. The consultancy grew faster than I had anticipated. Within the first month, I had 15 clients, all women navigating financial uncertainty. Some were facing divorce like me. Others were widows trying to understand finances, their husbands had always handled. A few were young professionals who wanted to ensure they never found themselves financially vulnerable. I hired a part-time assistant, Margaret, a recently retired accountant who brought decades of experience and a warm, motherly presence that put nervous clients at ease. Together, we created workshops on financial literacy, estate planning, and protecting assets during life transitions. The work filled a void I hadn't realized existed. For years, I had poured my energy into supporting Gregory's ambitions and raising Amelia. Now I was building something entirely my own, and the satisfaction was profound. One afternoon, about 6 weeks after the preliminary hearing, I received an unexpected visitor at my office. A woman in her early 40s, impeccably dressed, walked in without an appointment. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. My name is Rachel Montgomery. I heard about your consultancy from a friend, and I was hoping you might have a moment to speak with me." I invited her in, and over the next hour, Rachel shared her story. Her husband had recently asked for a divorce, claiming he needed to find himself. She suspected there was another woman, but he denied it. More concerning, she had discovered that their financial situation wasn't what she had believed it to be. "I trusted him completely," Rachel said, tears welling in her eyes. "I never questioned where our money was going, and now I'm realizing how foolish that was. I saw myself in her, the woman I had been just months ago." "Trust isn't foolish," I told her gently, "but verification is wise. Let's look at what you have and create a plan to protect yourself." Over the following weeks, I helped Rachel untangle her finances, discover hidden accounts, and prepare for her divorce. Watching her gain confidence and control over her situation reminded me why I had started this business. The final divorce hearing fell on what would have been our 29th anniversary, a fitting end to a chapter of my life that had lasted nearly 3 decades. Gregory arrived looking haggard. I later learned that his business was struggling without my financial support and guidance. Cassandra was long gone, already dating a real estate developer from Savannah. Most of our mutual friends had distanced themselves from him after learning the full story of his deception. The judge upheld the prenuptial agreement in its entirety. Gregory left with his personal possessions, his struggling business, and the money in his private account, which, after paying his attorney, was barely enough to secure a small apartment. I retained our home, my retirement accounts, and 70% of our joint investments, exactly as the prenuptial agreement stipulated in cases of infidelity. The justice was poetic. The very document Gregory had insisted upon to protect himself had become his downfall. As we left the courtroom, Gregory approached me one last time. "I made a terrible mistake," he said quietly. "Is there any chance we could know?" I interrupted, gentle but firm. "That door is closed." "I understand," he replied. And for once I believed he did. "I hope you find happiness, Bianca. You deserve it." It was perhaps the first honest thing he had said to me in years. 6 months later, my consultancy, Caldwell Financial Transitions, was thriving. I had moved from the small office to a larger space and hired 2 associates, Margaret, who had become my full-time partner, and Jessica, a young certified financial planner with a passion for helping women achieve financial independence. We had served over 80 clients and conducted workshops across Augusta and surrounding communities. Local newspapers had featured stories about our work. A regional business magazine named me one of the top entrepreneurs to watch. But the true measure of success wasn't the accolades or the growing client list. It was the letters I received from women thanking me for giving them the tools and confidence to take control of their financial futures. It was seeing the relief on their faces when they realized they weren't helpless, that they had options and resources. Amelia visited often, proud of what I had built. During one visit, we sat in my new office overlooking Augusta's downtown, drinking coffee and discussing her own career trajectory. "You know what's ironic?" she said, gazing out the window. "If Dad had just been honest from the beginning, he might have kept half of everything. Instead, his greed and deception cost him almost everything. Sometimes people can't see beyond what they want in the moment," I replied. "They convince themselves that the end justifies the means, that they're entitled to whatever they desire, regardless of who gets hurt. Do you ever regret it? the way things ended, Amelia asked. I considered the question carefully. I regret that our marriage ended. I regret the years I spent not seeing who Gregory had become, but I don't regret how I handled the situation once I discovered the truth. I protected myself and by extension you. I refused to be a victim of someone else's selfishness. Amelia smiled. You taught me something important through all of this, Mom. You showed me that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to reclaim your life, to build something meaningful. Her words touched me deeply. If nothing else, the painful dissolution of my marriage had taught my daughter a valuable lesson about self, worth, and resilience. Diana became a regular fixture in my life, joining me for weekly dinners and helping me navigate my new single life. She introduced me to her circle of friends, professors, artists, writers, people with interesting minds and diverse perspectives. For the first time in years, I felt intellectually stimulated and socially engaged in ways that had nothing to do with being someone's wife. One evening, Diana mentioned that Gregory had reached out to her asking about me. He wanted to know if you were seeing anyone, she said, her tone carefully neutral. I told him that wasn't any of his business, but between you and me, are you? I laughed. Dating is the furthest thing from my mind right now. I'm rediscovering who I am as an individual, not as half of a couple. That's more than enough for now. Good answer, Diana replied. Though I will say, when you're ready, there are several eligible men in my department who would be lucky to take you to dinner. I'll keep that in mind, I said, though I meant it more as politeness than genuine interest. The truth was, I was content. Perhaps for the first time in my adult life, I felt complete without needing validation from a romantic partner. I had spent nearly 3 decades defining myself through my relationships, as Gregory's wife, as Amelia's mother. Now I was simply Bianca, entrepreneur, mentor, friend, and independent woman. As autumn arrived, painting Augusta in brilliant golds and reds, I received an invitation to speak at a women's business conference in Atlanta. The topic, building financial security during life transitions. Standing on that stage, sharing my story and expertise with hundreds of women, I felt a profound sense of purpose. After my presentation, dozens of women approached me with questions, sharing their own stories of financial uncertainty and seeking advice. Several were trapped in situations similar to what mine had been, married to men who controlled the finances, feeling powerless to advocate for themselves. You've given me hope, one woman told me, gripping my hand. I've been afraid to leave an unhappy marriage because I didn't think I could survive financially on my own. But listening to you, I realize I can prepare, I can plan, I can protect myself. These moments made every painful step of my journey worthwhile. That evening, back in my hotel room, I reflected on how far I had come. A year ago, I had been standing in that restaurant, absorbing Gregory's public humiliation. I had felt the weight of 50 pairs of eyes, judging me, pitying me, waiting for me to crumble. Instead, I had walked out with my dignity intact and my future secured. The envelope I had placed beside Gregory's plate hadn't just been a weapon, it had been a declaration of independence. I thought about the prenuptial agreement that had saved me, the very document Gregory had insisted upon to protect himself. The irony still made me smile. His arrogance and short-sightedness had been his undoing. He had never imagined that I, dutiful and trusting Bianca, would have the strength and knowledge to use his own weapons against him. But I had learned something crucial through this experience. Strength isn't about never feeling hurt or afraid. It's about feeling those emotions and moving forward anyway. It's about protecting yourself while maintaining your integrity. It's about turning pain into purpose. The woman who had once defined herself as Gregory's wife and Amelia's mother had discovered a new identity: mentor, business owner, advocate, and survivor. The envelope I had handed Gregory at the restaurant hadn't just been my escape plan. It had been the key to a door I never knew existed. Behind that door, I found not just revenge, but reinvention. In securing my financial future, I had also reclaimed something far more valuable: myself. As I prepared for bed that night, my phone buzzed with a text from Amelia. Just saw your conference presentation online. You're amazing, Mom. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. The woman I had become wasn't entirely new. She had always been there, buried beneath years of compromise and sacrifice. Gregory's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. It had forced me to excavate my authentic self, to remember who I was before I became someone's wife, someone's mother. The next morning, I drove back to Augusta with a renewed sense of purpose. My calendar was full of client appointments and consultations. Margaret had scheduled 3 new workshops for the coming months. Jessica was developing an online course to expand our reach beyond Georgia. Caldwell Financial Transitions was growing beyond anything I had initially imagined. We were making a real difference in women's lives, one consultation at a time. But perhaps the most significant change was internal. I no longer woke up feeling the weight of someone else's expectations. I no longer guessed my worth or apologized for taking up space. I had learned to trust my instincts, value my expertise, and prioritize my own well-being. Gregory had tried to diminish me, to cast me aside for someone younger and presumably more exciting. He had underestimated my intelligence, my resilience, and my determination. That had been his greatest mistake. Looking back now, I could see that our marriage had been unraveling for years, long before Cassandra entered the picture. The foundation had eroded slowly, through small acts of disrespect and growing emotional distance. Gregory's affair had merely been the final crack in an already damaged structure. I thought about the woman I had been on that graduation day, standing in the restaurant with 50 pairs of eyes watching me. I had smiled, handed Gregory an envelope, and walked out with my head held high. That moment had required every ounce of strength I possessed, but it had also been the moment I reclaimed my power. The months that followed had been challenging. There were nights when I lay awake, questioning my decisions, mourning the loss of the future I had imagined. There were moments of loneliness, of wondering if I had been too harsh, too calculating. But those moments passed, replaced by a growing sense of confidence and purpose. One particularly meaningful afternoon, I received a call from Rachel Montgomery, the client who had reminded me so much of myself. Her divorce had been finalized, and she was calling to thank me. I got the house, she said, her voice bright with relief. And my attorney discovered that my ex had been hiding even more assets than we initially thought. Because of your guidance, I was prepared. I had documentation, evidence, everything I needed. That's wonderful, Rachel, I replied, genuinely pleased. What are you going to do now? I'm starting my own business, she said, a bakery. It's something I've always dreamed about but never had the courage to pursue. You inspired me, Bianca. You showed me that it's never too late to build the life you want. After we hung up, I sat in my office, staring at the wall where I had hung a simple frame with a quote that had become my mantra. The best revenge is living well. It was true, but I had discovered something even more important. The best revenge was becoming the person you were always meant to be. As winter approached, marking nearly a year since Gregory's announcement, I found myself taking stock of my life. The consultancy was thriving beyond my expectations. Amelia was flourishing in Charleston, building a successful career and finding her own path. Diana remained my closest confidante and friend, enriching my life with her wisdom and humor. I had also begun to rebuild my social circle, connecting with women who shared my values and interests. We met for book clubs, attended theater performances, and traveled together on weekend trips. These friendships were different from the ones I had maintained during my marriage. They were based on genuine connection rather than social obligation or proximity through our husbands. One Saturday morning in early December, I was working in my home office when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a delivery person holding a large bouquet of white roses, my favorite flower, though few people knew that. The card read, "I saw these and thought of you. Congratulations on everything you've accomplished. With admiration and respect, Philip." Philip Anderson, my attorney. We had developed a professional friendship during the divorce proceedings, built on mutual respect and shared values. He was divorced himself, a thoughtful man in his late 50s who ran marathons and volunteered at a local literacy program. I smiled, touched by the gesture. It wasn't romantic. At least, I didn't think it was meant to be. But it was kind and thoughtful. I sent him a thank you text, and we ended up meeting for coffee the following week. "I wanted to tell you something," Philip said as we sat in a quiet corner of a downtown cafe. "In 30 years of practicing family law, I've seen a lot of divorces. Most of them are messy, emotional battles where both parties lose something essential, their dignity, their integrity, their sense of self. But you handled your situation differently. I had good legal counsel." I replied, deflecting the compliment. "You had more than that." he insisted. You had clarity of purpose, emotional intelligence, and the courage to protect yourself without becoming vindictive. You didn't try to destroy Gregory. You simply refused to let him destroy you. That's rare. His words meant more to me than he probably realized. Throughout the divorce, I had questioned whether I was being too cold, too strategic. But Philip's perspective validated my approach. I had been fair but firm, protecting my interests without losing my humanity. As we talked, I realized that Philip and I shared a similar world, shaped by our experiences. We both believed in the importance of preparation, in understanding that love doesn't exempt anyone from the need for financial literacy and self-protection. We both had been hurt by betrayal, but had chosen not to let that pain harden us into cynicism. When we parted ways, Philip mentioned that a community theater group he supported was performing A Christmas Carol the following weekend, and he had an extra ticket if I was interested. I surprised myself by accepting. The performance was charming, and Philip's company was comfortable and easy. We talked about books, about our children, about the peculiar challenges of rebuilding life after divorce. There was no pressure, no awkwardness, just two people enjoying an evening together. Afterward, as he walked me to my car, Philip said, "I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I think you're remarkable, Bianca, not just for how you handled your divorce, but for what you've built afterward. You turned your pain into purpose, your experience into expertise. That takes real character." "Thank you," I replied, genuinely moved. "That means a lot coming from you." "Would you be interested in dinner sometime?" he asked. No pressure, no expectations, just good food and conversation. I hesitated for only a moment before agreeing. I wasn't sure if I was ready for romance, but I was ready for connection, for the possibility of companionship with someone who understood the complexities of starting over. As the anniversary of Gregory's announcement approached, I found myself reflecting on the full arc of the past year. It had been a year of profound transformation, of discovering strengths I didn't know I possessed, of building a life that was authentically mine. I had learned that betrayal, while devastating, doesn't have to define you. That revenge doesn't have to be vindictive to be satisfying. That the best response to someone who tries to diminish you is to become more fully yourself. On the actual anniversary of that fateful graduation day, I took myself to dinner at a nice restaurant. Not the same one where Gregory had made his announcement, but a newer place that had opened downtown. I dressed well, ordered an excellent meal, and toasted myself with a glass of champagne. To survival, I said quietly, raising my glass, and to thriving. As I sat there, content in my own company, I thought about the envelope I had handed Gregory exactly 1 year ago. Inside had been divorce papers, financial evidence, and the prenuptial agreement that would change both our lives. But more than that, it had contained my declaration of independence, my refusal to be a victim, my commitment to building a better future. That envelope had been the key that unlocked a door to a life I never imagined I could have. A life of purpose, independence, and authentic self-expression. Behind that door, I had found not just revenge, but reinvention. Not just survival, but success. Not just an ending, but a beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from Amelia. "Thinking of you today, Mom. 1 year ago, you showed me what strength really looks like. I love you." I smiled, my eyes misting slightly. Whatever else had been lost in the dissolution of my marriage, I had gained something invaluable. A daughter who understood that love sometimes means letting go, that strength sometimes looks like walking away, and that the truest form of success is building a life that honors who you really are. The next morning, I arrived at my office to find my team already there, preparing for a full day of client consultations. Margaret greeted me with her usual warm smile and a fresh cup of coffee. "You have a new inquiry," she said, handing me a phone message. "A woman named Patricia. She said a friend recommended us. She's going through a difficult divorce and needs help understanding her financial situation." I took the message, feeling that familiar sense of purpose wash over me. This was my calling now, helping women navigate the treacherous waters of financial uncertainty during life transitions. Each client represented an opportunity to share the hard, one wisdom I had gained, to prevent other women from finding themselves as blindsided as I had been. "Schedule her for this week," I told Margaret. "Make sure she knows she's not alone in this." As I settled into my office, reviewing the day's agenda, I realized that I had finally achieved what I had always wanted. financial independence, professional fulfillment, and personal autonomy. But I had gained these things not through Gregory's support or permission, but through my own determination and expertise. The irony wasn't lost on me. Gregory had spent years promising me that after the next business succeeds, or after we're more financially stable, I could pursue my dreams. He had positioned himself as the gatekeeper to my future, doling out permissions and timelines for when I could finally focus on my own aspirations. His betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. It had forced me to stop waiting for someone else's approval, to stop postponing my own dreams, to stop making myself small so someone else could feel big. The consultancy grew steadily through the winter and into spring. We expanded our services to include estate planning workshops, financial literacy programs for young women, and support groups for those navigating divorce. I was invited to speak at more conferences, to contribute articles to financial publications, to share my expertise on local news programs. Each opportunity reinforced what I had learned. My knowledge and experience had value. I had something important to offer the world, and I no longer needed anyone's permission to share it. In the spring, Amelia called with exciting news. She had been promoted to senior account manager at her firm, a significant achievement for someone so early in her career. I learned from the best, she told me. You taught me to be strategic, to document everything, to never underestimate my own worth. Those lessons apply to business too. I'm so proud of you, I replied, my heart swelling with maternal pride. You've built this success on your own merit, through your own hard work. Just like you did, she said. Mom, I want you to know something. What happened last year, the way you handled Dad's betrayal, the way you protected yourself, the way you built something meaningful from the wreckage. It changed my life too. You showed me that it's possible to face the worst and come out stronger. That's a gift. After we hung up, I sat quietly in my office, overcome with emotion. Gregory's betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but in surviving it, in refusing to be diminished by it, I had taught my daughter the most important lesson I could offer, that our worth is not determined by how others treat us, but by how we treat ourselves. As summer approached, marking nearly 18 months since that fateful graduation day, I found myself thinking less about Gregory and more about the future. The wounds had healed, replaced by scar tissue that was tougher and more resilient than the original skin. Philip and I had been seeing each other regularly, though we took things slowly. Neither of us was in a hurry to rush into anything serious. We enjoyed each other's company, respected each other's independence, and supported each other's personal and professional goals. It was a mature, balanced relationship built on mutual respect rather than passionate intensity, and it suited us both perfectly. One evening, as we sat on my back porch watching the sunset, Philip asked, "Do you ever regret how things turned out, not the divorce itself, but the way it happened?" I considered the question carefully. I regret that Gregory made the choices he did. I regret the years I spent not seeing the truth, but I don't regret how I responded once I discovered his deception. I protected myself, I protected my daughter, and I used the tools at my disposal to ensure a fair outcome. If I had done anything differently, I might not have the life I have now. And you're happy with this life? He asked. I looked around at my home, truly mine now, at the thriving business I had built, at the friendships I had cultivated, at the future that stretched ahead, filled with possibility rather than obligation. I'm more than happy, I replied. I'm fulfilled, I'm authentic, I'm free. For the first time in my adult life, I'm living according to my own values and priorities, not someone else's. Philip smiled and reached for my hand. That's beautiful, he said simply. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The envelope I had handed Gregory had contained more than just legal documents. It had contained my refusal to accept less than I deserved, my commitment to building a life of integrity and purpose, my declaration that I would not be defined by someone else's betrayal. In the end, Gregory had tried to start a new life without me. Instead, I had started a new life without him, A life that was richer, more meaningful, and more authentically mine than anything we had built together. The woman who had walked out of that restaurant with her head held high had been afraid, hurt, and uncertain. But she had also been determined, strategic, and unwilling to be a victim. She had taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into a catalyst for profound personal growth and professional success. That woman was still me, but she was also different now. Stronger, wiser, more confident in her own worth. She had learned that sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you who they really are, because that clarity allows you to make informed decisions about your own life. She had learned that financial independence isn't just about money. It's about having options, having agency, having the freedom to choose your own path. She had learned that revenge doesn't have to be vindictive. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's choices diminish your own light. And most importantly, she had learned that it's never too late to reclaim yourself, to build the life you've always wanted, to become the person you were always meant to be. As darkness fell and the first stars appeared in the sky, I squeezed Philip's hand and smiled. The envelope I had handed Gregory had been the key to a door I never knew existed. Behind that door, I had found not just revenge, but reinvention. Not just survival, but thriving. Not just an ending, but the most beautiful beginning of all. The one where I finally discovered